Governor Andrew Cuomo is done politically. In reality, he should be in jail. And the great irony is the very thing that's going to bring him down and end his gubernatorial service is the very thing that is also saving him from sitting in a jail cell where he belongs. Well, the pile-on has begun, and it's not coming from Republicans in the state of New York. The Republicans that are calling for Andrew Cuomo to be stripped of his emergency power and to even consider at this point his impeachment has to do with the nursing home deaths. The fact that he gave not only the directive, but then threatened nursing homes to pull their licensure if they refused to take in COVID-positive patients. Even after President Trump had sent ships to New York City, military ships to act as hospitals, even after the military had mobilized emergency hospitals, and Franklin Graham sent Samaritan's Purse to set up emergency hospitals so that the New York hospitals would not be overrun. Those patients were not sent to any of those emergency hospitals. Literally, tens of thousands of available beds were ready for them. No, nay, the governor ordered that those COVID-positive people be sent to nursing homes. But sadly, all that's being forgotten, and it's not that these allegations of sexual misconduct are not important. They most certainly are. Because that is actually what is bringing down his governorship, but it's actually covering the far greater crime. Murder. The latest young woman, this would now be woman number 3 to come forward, actually has pictures. Someone took pictures of the sexual harassment as it was happening. She was attending a wedding. The governor happened to be there. He walked up to her, put his hand on her bare back, drew her into him and said, "Hey, can I kiss you?" And then put his hands up around her neck and face, which you see in the picture. What? And this happened in 2019. So now this brings it up now to officially 3 women. It began with Lindsay Boylan, and then it was Charlotte Bennett, both former aides, former staff members, and now a young woman who happened to simply be at the same wedding that the governor was at. When the governor was pressed about some of this, he said it was a joke. So he hasn't denied it, and now he's offering some type of half apology that apparently hasn't been, as sensitive as he should be in these awkward moments. Wait, what? Well, of course he's going to say that because that's how Biden's gotten away with everything. Oh, yeah. Even though there are Democrats coming forward now and they're starting to throw Andrew Cuomo under the bus, and of course Mayor Bill de Blasio never misses an opportunity to really, stick it into the governor. But we know that de Blasio and Cuomo can't stand each other. In fact, we might say that they literally hate one another. The mayor is in trouble politically in New York. New York City is absolutely been destroyed by his tenure as mayor. And you've got some pretty well-known individuals now thinking about throwing their hat in the ring to challenge de Blasio for a mayoral run. And so he needs to get the attention off of him and on anything else. And here comes Cuomo, the scapegoat. And, Cuomo, again, so smug, so arrogant. He and his brother doing those just absolutely cringeworthy CNN interviews. He was given an Emmy for being the be-all, end-all of how to handle COVID, despite the fact that he was literally killing people. but in that arrogance, the way he would handle his press conferences and talk down to reporters. One reporter, he actually said to her, female, her, "Can you eat the whole sausage?" Well, seeing what we're seeing and finding out what we're finding out about the governor, one makes you wonder the context in which he said that. Now, of course, you've got Nancy Pelosi now saying that these allegations are credible and they're coming from credible women, but I would strongly urge that we follow due process. The due process that was not afforded to Brett Kavanaugh. All of these people that were ready to lynch Brett Kavanaugh now want us to make sure that we take our time when looking into the allegations against Andrew Cuomo. Well, we called for due process for Brett Kavanaugh, and yes, Governor Cuomo is due his due process, but the irony, and even Joe Biden, the White House now saying that these allegations need to be taken seriously and looked into. Well, let's go ahead because, my head almost exploded today when Hillary Rotham Clinton came forward and said, yes, we need to look into these allegations. Really, Hillary? Really? What about the allegations against your husband? You ever talk to Juanita Broderick? You ever talk to Paula? You ever talk to any of these women that you absolutely vilified, crucified, and made their lives a living hell? Remember, it was your boy, James Carville, that in his defense of Bill Clinton said, well, you just take a $100 bill and run it through a trailer park. You never know what you're going to find. You destroyed the character of these women, said they were all lying, it was a vast right-wing conspiracy. Now, all of a sudden, you're saying, well, these allegations should be taken seriously against the governor, and we should look into it. You know what? Shut up. Listening to you talk about sexual harassment has as much credibility as Liz Cheney lecturing Republicans on why Donald Trump is not fit for office when she is the daughter of a war criminal, a war profiteer, and she herself has never seen a war that she hasn't wanted to send your children into battle to bleed and die for. Both of you, shut up, go away. The president may not have gotten the swamp drained while he was in Washington, but he certainly did see the water recede enough that we can actually now see in the muck and the vileness who the swamp creatures really are. And that's just about everybody that's still there. Yes, Lindsey Graham, I'm looking at you too. Now, that all said, we have Joe Biden, the sniffer. He put some women in awkward positions.
Well, it happened also suddenly. Anyone who's ever been at a rally recognizes that there is just chaos. There's a lot of energy, that everyone's running back and forth. Eva Longoria was there. We were all lined up next to the stage. Eva was in front of me. Joe Biden was behind me. I'm kind of preparing myself to give these remarks. It's the very last days before the election. And very unexpectedly and out of nowhere, I feel Joe Biden put his hands on my shoulders, get up very close to me from behind, lean in, smell my hair, and then plant a slow kiss on the top of my head. And that in and of itself might not sound like it's a very serious thing. That in and of itself might sound like it was innocent and well-intentioned. But in the context of it, as a person that had absolutely no relationship with him afterwards, as a candidate who was preparing to make my case for why I should be elected the second in command of that state, to have the vice president of the United States do that to me so unexpectedly and just kind of out of nowhere, it was just shocking. It was shocking because you don't expect that kind of intimate behavior. You don't expect that kind of intimacy from someone so powerful and someone who you just have no relationship whatsoever to touch you and to feel you and to be so close to you in that way. So I frankly just didn't even know how to react. I was just shocked. I felt powerless. I felt like I couldn't move. I just didn't even know how to process it. And my bigger point that I've been making is that in these power dynamic situations, and women are subjected to this in the political setting, but in work settings all the time, that you just kind of process it and then you move on because you have a job to do. And frankly, what do you say? Who do you tell? There just isn't really a mechanism to deal with it. And so that's what I did. I went on and I made my case and campaigned and frankly then went on with my life because, again, what do you do?
So Lucy Flores explaining, okay, this may have not been outright a sexual assault, but this is certainly, when you look at it, he is a man of authority, he is in power, and way, not just invading my personal space, but way inappropriate behavior. Hey, Governor, when you walk up to a woman and just draw her into you, say, can I kiss you? But see, Biden got away with it, so Cuomo's thinking, hey, Clinton and everybody else in my party gets away with it. See, again, some of you liberal ladies, will you listen to me, please? Please? I want you to stop and think about something. I'm not saying that Republican men haven't acted like pigs and done things that they need to be ashamed of. But you know, this Me Too thing, it's going about 4-1 in the Democrat column. Al Franken, Bill Clinton, Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein. Now we've got Andrew Cuomo. And where there's one, there's three, and where there's three, there's six. And this is just going to keep coming now. And it's the Democrats in New York, especially Albany. The Democrats of New York are saying, you got to go. You got to go. And ladies, listen to me. You understand that these men, they talk like that they are for women's rights and women's liberation and the feminist movement, and they have used it as a way to lure you in and do a little fishing in the barrel. You have been double used. Which brings us to Tara Reade. I talked about Tara over a year ago. Tara Reade, who claims that when she was a young aide working for then Senator Joe Biden, and she was so drawn to him and enamored to him because she thought he was this incredibly charismatic leader of women's rights. And when she got the appointment to work and intern for him, she and her family, they were so excited because he was this progressive guy for women's issues. And then she finds herself in a hallway. He didn't have the decency to use a private room in a hallway. He grabbed her. We have played the audio. Now we'll show you the video of her testimony.
And I was walking to the Capitol. Through the Russell building, you go down the stairs, you go down. And then it was somewhere in either the Russell or Capitol, I'm not sure, in an alcove. But we were in a semi-private place. It wasn't completely private. He was at first talking to someone. They went away, and then he said, come here. And then when I gave him the gym bag, it happened all in one motion almost. And he had me against the wall. And then his hands were down my skirt and up my skirt. And I was wearing, I wasn't wearing tights or anything. And he then, with his hand, went from there and entered me with his hand, and as he was trying to kiss me and saying things to me. His hands were down my skirt and up my skirt. And I was wearing, I wasn't wearing tights or anything. He then, with his hand, went from there and entered. He then, with his hand, went from there and entered.
And when Camilla thinks she's a hottie Harris, who now serves as the vice president of Joe Biden, the same guy that she mixed it up with on the debate stage and accused him of being prejudiced and really enforcing the segregation of schools, but apparently she got over that. Well, of course, she could forgive Joe for that. After all, her own grandfather was a slave trader. Wait, what? Oh, yeah. Look up the family history. When Kamala was pressed in the summer, hey, what about these allegations about Joe Biden acting inappropriately when there's women coming forward? What do you have to say about that? And in August of 2020, she said, they're to be believed.
I believe them, and I respect them being able to tell their story and having the courage to do it.
But apparently not enough for you to refuse the vice presidency, right, Kamala? You liberal women ought to feel lied to and cheated by the women of your party. The women who on the one hand scream and yell about equal rights and equal pay and equity and you need to be treated with dignity and respect and me too, and you march with the women in Washington with the little wedge caps to protest the orange man being the president, but yet when you are the victim of sexual assault by a fellow Democrat, all of a sudden, they're nowhere to be found to defend you. But the Kamala Camille thinks she's a Hottie Harris, who made fun of Vice President Mike Pence when Mike Pence had made it clear that he didn't meet alone with women that weren't his wife. He didn't go out to dinner with women that he wasn't married to unless his wife was there. And she was one that laughed at him. And I know why she was laughing. She was probably thinking, wow, I'd have never gotten anywhere in politics if men didn't want to be alone with me. So Kamala Harris, during the Brett Kavanaugh hearing, here sits, his accuser who he raped me and traumatized me to the point I can't get on an airplane even though I flew here and I've flown around the world to look at art and flowers and I have to have 2 front doors because I'm so traumatized, but I don't really know where the house was that this happened and nobody who was there remembers me or remembers this happening to me, and none of the people who know Brett Kavanaugh remember me, and none of them ever remember our ever one time interacting together, and even my friends that I've talked about this with have all said, we don't ever remember you being with Brett Kavanaugh, but yet Kamala said, I believe you.
And so I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your courage, and I want to tell you I believe you. I believe you.
But apparently that doesn't apply to Joe the Sniffer Biden, Joe the Creeper Biden. And you know what's happening right now? On one level, Andrew Cuomo is a known commodity. The Democrats have known for years, decades, that this guy's an absolute creep, that he is, on one level, he is a bully. He wants to come across as a mob boss. And on the other hand, they know that he is an absolute vile pig when it comes to his behavior with women. The reason they're now coming forward is that this is not a shock to them. I said this yesterday. They're not shocked by this. They've known this. It's now just coming out, and now they have decided he is a liability moving forward. He gotta go. He gotta go. When in reality, what he should be gone for is what he did with the nursing homes. And for those of you that haven't quite followed, okay, we know he sent some people into nursing homes and that spread the virus, but that wasn't his fault. Yeah, it was. It was. See, the original directive that came through the CDC, and some could imply President Trump, was in the very beginning stages of the pandemic, before they had the respirators rolling off the assembly lines, before all of these emergency hospitals were set up, to ensure that a place like New York City, which was really going to be the epicenter of the outbreak, that's what we were told, to make sure they were not overwhelmed, the CDC sent a guideline that, you could use empty beds in nursing homes for COVID positive people. But the idea was you got to set up guidelines. You got to have a COVID only unit. You got to keep them away from the general population in the nursing home. Follow some safety procedure. Well, you know what? Cuomo threw all that out the window, and he simply ordered every nursing home in New York to take COVID positive people. And even when he had the emergency hospitals, he didn't use them. He forced and made nursing homes to take them, and then lied about it. And Governor Kristi Noem reminded everybody and walked everybody through the timeline of what actually happened.
Now seems like a really good time to remind everyone of what Governor Cuomo was doing in New York. On March 25th, Cuomo ordered COVID patients into nursing homes. and he prohibited the staff from testing people before admitting them. 9 days later, he pushed legislation prohibiting nursing home lawsuits over COVID deaths. 6 days after that, he prohibited nursing homes from sending COVID patients to the nearby naval hospital ship or the field hospital, both of which were essentially empty. Now, 8 days after that, the first deaths started to show up. And on January 28th of this year, the New York Attorney General announced that Cuomo and his administration significantly undercounted the number of COVID-related deaths in nursing homes by as much as 50%. To make matters worse, they tried to cover it up. Now that is the media's COVID hero.
By the way, in that same speech, Governor Noem absolutely barbecued, roasted, and fried Dr. Fauci Stein, the evil love child of Dr. Kevorkian. And she just roasted him. Because at one time, because remember, South Dakota, the only state of all 50, the only one that never did a lockdown, never told people to quarantine and stay home, never did a mask mandate. And Fauci said, you'll have 10,000 hospitalizations from COVID. She had 600. See, again, the real science is you let a virus spread. You lock down, all you do is slow down. And the inevitable will always happen. He killed people. Andrew Cuomo killed people, then lied about it, then covered it up. He ought to be in jail for that. And in reality, most people can't wrap their head around the details of that, but they do follow sex scandals. And this one is ramping up, and it's a steady drip every day now. Drip, 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 drip. And he got to go. And gone he is going to be. But sadly, not for what he should be gone for. Hey, that's it for this rant. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you smack the bell and click the word all to get notification of all of my rants, and don't forget to follow me on my other platforms.